Hello and welcome back to the Connect the Game podcast. It's episode 3. Thanks so much for those who tuned in for the first two. And for those getting set here on episode 3, welcome and maybe even welcome back. I'm your host, Tim Crowley. What a great week in sports it was, and another great week to talk about them on the Connect the Game podcast. Got a fun interview coming up with one of the broadcasters for the Frisco RoughRiders and Tyler Danburg. And we'll have plenty of baseball stuff to talk about and even sprinkle in some basketball because March Madness, the Final Four, it's been a great one and a very exciting one, which we'll get to in just a little bit. I think the best way to kind of go through the news, and again, we want this to be a storytelling podcast. That's what the base of our interviews are going to be. But there is some ways to kind of speed up the news a little bit. So I think the way to do this going forward is going to have some 5 quick takeaways from the week that was in sports, and we'll lead off the show with those moving forward. So with that, on episode 3, a lot to talk about. Let's get into the 5 takeaways from the last week. Number 1, shout out to UConn women's basketball getting back on top of the collegiate basketball world, 12th national championship for Gino Auriemma and that incredible staff down at UConn. A fitting end to the career of Paige Beckers, finally gets the title that she's worked so hard for. Incredible depth in the roster behind, and being able to get over South Carolina. What a matchup that's been able to be the last few years, seeing the Gamecocks and the Huskies go back and forth. 2 incredible coaches in Gino and Don Staley. This time UConn comes out with a dominant performance to win that one down in Tampa Bay. And shout out to the Huskies again on another national championship. Takeaway number 2. What a game between Duke and Houston. You know, I was sitting the other night writing some Red Sox stuff later in the night. Looked up in the start of the second half. Duke starting to run away. Cooper Flagg starting to find his form, and just kind of looked like the Blue Devils were a runaway train at that point. Only for Houston to start to turn it around and put together a furious comeback. There was a tweet I saw the other day, and I'll try to find it, of the timing of, when there was 8 minutes left. Duke had this lead. When it was 6 minutes left, Duke had this lead. With 30 seconds left, Duke had this lead, down and down. And the magnitude of the Houston comeback on the biggest stage. A team that I actually talked about in an SM podcast a few weeks ago, felt like they had been knocking on the door for quite some time. Big shout out to Kelvin Sampson's crew of getting that done against an incredibly talented Duke team, doing so in the final minutes, Final Four, San Antonio game on the line. What an incredible job, again, getting the shots up, the putback dunk at the end, forcing a jump ball with the possession arrow in your favor. They did everything right, and then to top it off, clean defense without fouling to force the miss from Cooper Flagg, left it just short on that jumper that just fell right at the front of the rim. Duke falls Houston to the national championship game. It should be a very fun one at the time of this recording when they take on the Florida Gators with the national championship on the line. Takeaway number 3, shout out to Alex Ovechkin, the Washington Capitals all-time great, taking over the all-time goals record in the National Hockey League. He beats out Wayne Gretzky in the exact same number of games it took Wayne to get that record back in his own playing days. Obviously a sensational scorer. Alex Ovechkin has been one of the best to watch for so many years now. He finally gets his cup a few years ago with Washington, really has that full career resume, and again, solidifies himself. Scores the goal 895 against the New York Islanders over the weekend. Had that fun little shout out to Sorokin in his speech at center ice, and really just a shout out to the NHL for doing an incredible job with the Ovechkin ceremony upon scoring goal 895. One of the all-time greats. There's not a ton that you have to say about Ovechkin. Gets the job done at 895. Takeaway number 4. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. got paid. 14 years, $500 million as he stays put with the Toronto Blue Jays, will play the rest of his career north of the border. That's a pretty significant development that we saw very late Sunday night going into Monday morning of this superstar player in Toronto. Didn't seem like there was any sort of momentum towards an extension in spring training. There wasn't one that came to be, and it seems like a foregone conclusion that he was going to go be the prize offensive free agent heading into the 2026 season. Seems like the Red Sox and the Mets, a few other teams that really seemed like they were going to lead a really compelling charge for him next offseason and add a substantial right-handed bat to their order. Instead, Vladdy stays put, and it looks like he'll be a Blue Jay for life. 5th and final takeaway for the week. I think it's safe to say the Red Sox bats are back. And there was no better way to say that than with an 18-run outburst, the back half of a doubleheader, Sunday Night Baseball, ESPN, national TV against the St. Louis Cardinals. Everybody hits. And yes, as we'll get into in a little more depth in a little bit at the back end of the show, yes, that includes Rafael Devers. All the strikeout talks, all the struggle talks, the criticisms that came down, don't get me wrong, they were totally valid at the time. And Devers deserved to face some of the heat with that as he struggled to find his form. The swing was long. He was getting beat on fastballs. That was the start of the season for Devers. He finally gets that first hit to drive in a run with the double against the Orioles. And from there, he has been on fire. Four-hit night on Sunday Night Baseball, sending rockets around the park at Fenway Park, and you saw how that offense comes together when Rafael Devers is on. Alex Bregman hits his first Fenway homer. Tristan Casas is starting to look a little bit more like himself. How about Carlos Narvaez, backup catcher that comes over from the New York Yankees in the offseason? He's tearing the cover out the ball, and it looks like he's going to be an impactful offensive player at Fenway, maybe even pushing for the starting reps against Connor Long. Really excited to see how this Red Sox offense develops, but at the time of this recording, they've won five straight, and the offense looks like it's really starting to come alive and put those early season struggles, particularly with runners in scoring position, leaving those back behind from the opening series against the Texas Rangers. That's the five takeaways for this week. Still have a little more Red Sox discussion I want to get to at the end of the show, but for now, obviously the staple of our shows is the weekly interviews, and this week it's another fun one, and continuing what I guess we'll call the Kituit Kettleers broadcast reunion tour. Had that with Riley Pay and Chris Carey so far on episodes 1 and 2. This one I did not get to share the booth with, which is rather unfortunate given the incredible talent and person that this one is Tyler Danburg, an Ohio State product, another Kituit Kettleers former broadcaster, and now one of the broadcasters down in AA with the Frisco RoughRiders. Great chat with Tyler. Let's dive right in on Connect the Game. Back here on Connect the Game, episode 3. Another guest, and at this point, what continues to be the Kituit Kettleers broadcast reunion tour. It's Tyler Danburg now broadcasting and down in Frisco. Tyler, appreciate having you on. What a great start this is to the season for you, and so happy to be seeing you doing your thing in pro ball, like we all knew would be, a matter of time for you.
Thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate you having me on, and it's a really cool thing to have this Kituit reunion tour because I mean it's a great place. It's an unbelievable spot for the summer, and there have been a lot of incredible people that have come through it. So it's really cool to be connected through the broadcast teams of the past and the present, and they're going to do a great job this year, like they always do.
We're going to talk plenty of Cats in a little bit, but I know just to start, and we'll get chronological. You're a Northeast kid. You spend a lot of your time in, either Columbus or in Kituit in the summer. What is April in Frisco like? Is it a little different to maybe have a little bit of a warm spell?
It's different to have 85 degrees in late February, but the changes in weather, Tim, are very similar because being from Cleveland, Ohio, you're used to having 1 week or a couple weeks in March where it's 35 one day, a rare 70 degrees the next, then a big storm comes through, and then it's snowing by Sunday. So we've had a couple of those. The winds, I was not ready for the winds, and the hail is pretty
Oof.
large. But outside of that, it's been an incredible time down here in Frisco, Texas.
Well, let's go back to Cleveland for a little bit for you and where this all started. How early was it for you that you knew this is where you wanted to be and on your career path?
So we were at a Christmas party when I was 3 years old at the neighborhood Christmas party, and we had a Santa that came in and dished out gifts to all the kids, and I got an ESPN microphone. So naturally, the first thing that I did was open it up, put the batteries in. Well, I had to have parents use for that, but started interviewing people and bothered the heck out of everybody. Just absolutely badgered them. And I think it was kind of then where everybody thought that, this is probably what I was going to do. And I kind of had no doubt that this is what I wanted to do. And then when I was in eighth grade in 2016 at Fairview Mayer Middle School in Fairview Park, Ohio, I had an incredibly supportive associate principal by the name of Raymond Moore, and he put me in touch with our digital media arts teacher at the high school, Mr. Chris Kaminsky. And we got together and I pitched to them the idea of broadcasting Fairview High School sports. And they were super receptive to it, which they didn't have to be. And so because of that, all this was able to happen. And so I started doing games that December of 2016 and got to do boys basketball, and then it turned into boys and girls basketball and football. And by the time we got to COVID, we had done 3 years of audio broadcasts, and then we moved over to the video streaming side through a local company called Boxcast in the Cleveland area. And by that time, COVID had actually taken away the ability for fans at some point. This is 2020, fall of 2020. And so they were bringing sports back. But the caveat was that at our school, they said, well, teams can play, but we're going to have to limit capacity. So that's where we were really bought into the idea of the TV broadcast and did more sports because we had to. So we did bowling, we did golf, we did trying to go back here. We did baseball and softball, and so it was a great way to get involved. And then by the time I was looking for colleges, I knew that being in the Big Ten was going to be the place to be. And I was looking at different options. Michigan State, Indiana, and Ohio State were the big three. And I looked at Ohio State, and it was a school that had 36 varsity sports. It has an athletic department with a brand that speaks for itself. And the radio program was newer, so the numbers weren't as high. So you could step on campus and ideally get reps, whether you have so much experience or none at all. And being at the Big Ten, you get to do games that are broadcast by students, produced by students, and directed by students on Big Ten Plus. So it's a pretty cool venture, and I'm grateful for it.
How interesting is that? Because it's been cool to see some of the bigger schools like Power Five, Power Four schools the last few years, really dive into student broadcasters and put them more on the spotlight. The Big Ten has done an exceptional job of that. Obviously, our friend Jake Starr got a ton of opportunities with that at Penn State. But how cool was that to grow as a broadcaster, with those opportunities, with those teams? Being in the a national spotlight, because not to say there's drama at Ohio State, but there's always a heck of a lot of attention, and you were there right in the middle of that, particularly for football, of years of how every week seems to determine Ryan Day's job status for the next year or so. Growing in that type of environment, how special was that, and kind of what made that different compared to a lot of other collegiate broadcasters around the country?
Well, I think, Tim, Ohio State prides itself on the people, the tradition, and the excellence. And it was an incredible experience because of those people. So, from everybody from the redcoats that worked the games at the gates and working as ticket takers and people who ran the loading docks downstairs to the sports information directors. I mean, we got to really know so many people, and that's what made it such a great experience. But I mean, it meant the world, and it means the world to have these opportunities because I mean, the people at the Big Ten Network, they put trust in their students to put in the time and the care and the effort to produce and broadcast a show. It's a really special thing. The sports information directors are the lifeblood. They respond to our every email about reaching out to talk to coaches, to come to media availabilities, to be in constant communication with them. And they always respond. And even at the schools that are not in the Big Ten, they realize that this is a great opportunity to be broadcast on nonlinear television, but to have that platform. And so they're receptive to it. So I mean, it's just really cool to see the support that everybody has. And I think what's special about Big Ten Plus as well is you get to create special relationships with the full-time staff that are the producers. So the students broadcast and produce and run the show, but there's also a production manager and assistant production manager that help oversee things, and they're employees. And Marco Fratelli and Cass Clark and Holly Wintering, those are the three that have been there since I've been there. They've been monumental in the growth of that program at Ohio State, and they've been monumental for the growth of all of us. So I'm really thankful for what they've done.
I think it's also special, particularly on the radio side, and I loved that this was a constant in your college career, that you guys were always traveling too, because especially post-COVID, there's a lot of professional organizations that aren't even doing that anymore. You guys were wherever the biggest story was for the Buckeyes for years. Uh, we're going to get to the national championship game, I'm sure, but you've called, bowl games, you've called, Big Ten title games. Are there travel stories, whether it's about the broadcast itself or just the camaraderie, on buses and hotel rooms around, the Big Ten country, that stand out to you from your time at Ohio State?
Well, Tim, the best part about getting to know people in our Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio program is road trips because you're stuck in a car with them for 4 to 8 hours and you get to know a lot of people. So, for example, like during the Big Ten men's soccer tournament, I got to travel with my friend Luke Williams. And this is his first year in the program. And I mean, we had gotten really close, and we just got to know each other better because ultimately you're not going to not make conversation in the car when you're driving for 6 hours. And so it just allows you to do all that. Some travel stories for you during, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about bowl season, but I'll give you one. We were going to the Rose Bowl, and basically, I mean, we had booked tickets because we had booked it before the first round of the playoff game, and we booked fully refundable tickets because we knew that tickets were going to be scarce to get a flight out to any of the LA airports from Columbus or Cleveland or Cincinnati. And we knew that at halftime, this very passionate, supportive, and well traveled Ohio State fan base is naturally going to schedule flights to go out to LA at halftime of that game. So we got out in front of it. So we were all ready to go. And we get to the Columbus airport, the four of us, Connor Shue, Austin Kroom, and Connor Canfield and myself. And we get there and it's rainy, it's windy, it's just blustery and really ugly out. And we have a connecting flight in Chicago at Midway Airport. And so we get a notification on our phones and then over the airport, and they say your flight. So we had 1 hour until we had to connect from Chicago to LA, and they said your flight from Columbus to Chicago has been delayed by 2 hours. Oh no, we're gonna miss our. We can get to Chicago. We have no way to get back or get to
Yeah.
LA. So then it keeps getting pushed back and then it gets canceled. So we have to quickly, plan flights and we have to wait in line. And luckily we got ahead pretty quickly and we're able to schedule another flight from Columbus to Chicago Midway. But the caveat is that we'd have to fly out of Columbus at 1 a.m. We'd been there since 5 p.m. And then we don't fly out to LA until about 10 a.m. So we couldn't, they offered to schedule us a hotel, but also too, we weren't really sure if we could do that, get to somewhere downtown or near the airport and then get back and fly out. Was it worth it? We weren't sure. So we stayed at Midway Airport for about 4 hours and we had to wait because, they closed the airport. So we waited a baggage claim for about 2 hours before the airport opened up. And then we fly to LA, we wait, and then we get there and we drive straight to the hotel and we go right over to, the media availabilities and media day and all that fun stuff where you get to know the players really well and talk to them. And so we basically went 30 hours, without sleeping, but it's pure adrenaline because it's the Rose Bowl. It's the college football playoff quarterfinals. So that's been my one of my favorite travel stories as of recent.
And certainly a game that lived up to the length of that trip, right? Obviously, they explode in the first half. And is there a better venue to call a game? I mean, that has to be up on the bucket list of broadcasters everywhere to call one at the Rose Bowl, the time of day that the game's played in Pasadena. Like, I can't imagine how special that must be just to look out from that press box.
It's magical. It's absolutely magical. When that sun goes down in the third quarter and the sky turns purple and orange and pink, and it's like every color that you wish you could use as a crayon when you're in art class in elementary school. It's unbelievable. And what adds on to it too is you're calling the Rose Bowl from the Keith Jackson Broadcast Center. When you hear Keith Jackson Broadcast Center, it's I mean it's something that puts, the hairs on your back standing. It's awesome, and I'm sure it's probably the same feeling you get when you walk into Fenway Park every day. It's a very special feeling.
It's different. It really is. And again, what an incredible run it ended up being for the Buckeyes. It is a very short list of people that get to be asked this question. What is it like to call a CFP national title game?
Exhilarating. It was incredible. It's really cool also that the way we do our play-by-play reps in the game, for postseason for football, everybody gets a quarter, and it was an absolute blessing to and a dream to get to do the fourth quarter. I got to give a shout out to my guys, Connor, and Austin. They were super supportive of and wanted me to do it. And I like that. That means a lot. And it was really cool too because everybody in that game had a signature thing to call, which was really cool. Austin had Quinshon Judkins basically just running through the Notre Dame secondary, and he was battling a sickness all that week, and mustered it up just to nail the moment, and was awesome. And Connor Canfield had a quarter where the offense just went absolutely bananas. And Connor Shue had a couple of big plays and a Jeremiah Smith touchdown, which, that's never not a great thing. So it was unbelievable to get that experience. And it doesn't happen if it's not for the support of SGSR and the support of the athletic department at OSU.
I know you are the last person that wants to talk about, yourself or, your perception, but obviously when you got to call these big games, people pay attention, but also to this, the quality of the broadcast and whether it's Jim Nantz conversations with the STAA or just people knowing you around the Cape. Like, was it cool to see how much, people started to pay attention to your work in college because obviously that was more than deserved. And I know you don't like talking about it, but I'm going to make you.
Dang it, Tim. No, thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. And it is really cool. It means a lot. It means a lot to have that and for people to interact online. I think the really cool thing is, and this, being at Hofstra and being on the Cape, it's really cool because it allows you to get to know people around the country that are also college broadcasters. That's the best part is you can kind of cold contact and reach out to people that are in your same position, and you strike up friendships with them, and you never know where that might lead you. So I'm super grateful to be a part of that, and to for people to have that recognition. It's really cool because that's how I feel about all of you. Being in the Cape League was just magical because of how tight knit the group of all the broadcasters were, which was really cool. I, I think it's a fun way, and this because you lived it. By being there that season, you know, you get to strike up those relationships and friendships with people that are broadcasters, people that are just, fellow. I mean, we're all fellow interns or players or coaches, and it's a really special thing, and that is and probably will be, one of, if not the best summer of my life, and it's because of the doors it opened and the friendships that started because of that.
Well, it's a fun one we certainly get to talk about. And, we can talk, how that application process went for you because I think it's a misconception at times how early that process starts, particularly on the play-by-play side. Like how early, the voice of a season on the Cape League gets hired the previous year. Like that 22 season ended for us, and we were having conversations about you in September. What was that process like as you started to come to the Cape, and how did you start to really find out about Katuitt and eventually apply there?
So I came out to the Cape in eighth grade, and that was really when going into my freshman year, and that was kind of when it started to become more serious to that I wanted to pursue this. And so being out there in the Cape Cod League, just talking to my parents and my family, and then they're like, there's a college summer league that's well renowned out here. We never got to go to a game out there, but we were in Hyannis and we were also I'm trying to remember. We were also in Falmouth that week, but we never got to a game. But we got to see Gov Fuller Field, and we got to see McKeon Park, and just seeing the character of all these places. I just kind of like, what, this I'm I want to be here at some point in college and to do games in the Cape Cod League. So after my freshman year at Ohio State, I was back home in Cleveland. I work and have spent the last 5 seasons as a visiting clubhouse attendant for the Cleveland Guardians, and so I worked there that year and just had an absolute ball. It's a special place there too, And in September of 2022, my sophomore year, that was when I started to look at the application process. So what I did was is that I'm sure you probably did a very similar thing where you look at all the GMs or the presidents with teams and reach out. I think first or second week in September, just started reaching out to introduce myself and ask if they knew when they were going to be opening up applications. And so I reached out to all the teams, and Katuitt got back, and they sent their Google form and their application process. And so I applied, and I knew of the Katuitt Cavaliers because, you win 17 titles. You have a recognition and a kind of an aura about yourselves, and that ballpark, Lowell Park, is just incredible. And so I interviewed, I think, middle late September, and just had a great time getting to talk to the great Leah Redpath and Scott Hill and talk to Glenn Ware, and those three interviewed me. And I think it was just talking to them and hearing what they all had to say about Katuitt and the ballpark and how they take care of their interns and treat their interns. That was something that, after ending the call, I remember talking to my parents, asking them, or, they asked how it went, and I told them this would be the place if they were to offer, the position, this would be a place I could definitely see myself at. And so, later that week, I think, or no, not later that week, it was a couple weeks later. It was actually when Ohio State played Rutgers, and we were on the field, and I got a call from Leah, and she offered the position, and took it. And Katuitt is just such a big part of my life, and it's where we got to become friends, which I'm very grateful for. It's just a special place. And so that, for those that are listening, that are interested in being out in the Cape Cod League, getting out in front of it in early fall or even late summer, early to mid-September, that's when movement starts to happen. And I can't recommend college summer ball itself enough.
It's cool because again, especially what it felt like for us is different seasons are now connected, in that booth. Obviously, you and I did not ever get to share the booth, unfortunately. But you came in right after us and put on your own show with Joe Pratt and Lily Butler, and really an exceptional production team that, in my opinion, really elevated with your summer, and it was really on display. Whether it is kind of like we talked about with Ohio State, whether it's the games itself, whether it's the off-field memories, what stands out to you about that summer? And something I was really proud of you guys for was you did make it your own. You had fun, and you also embraced the community, because that is so much about the Cape League itself, but specifically Kituitt, because it is this small little village that lives and breathes baseball on the beach. That's pretty much all it is there. And Jake and Riley and I had talked that fall of, we really hope whoever comes in here next buys into that, because there is a ability and a tendency at times, it feels like. I think a lot of kids that come to the Cape do their best to avoid it, but you can come in and kind of just keep your head down and worry about everything that goes into the work, and you should. But you don't really, show your face or get out there and, embrace the community. You just kind of lock yourself in the booth, and you're kind of like, the guy behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. And you guys did everything but that. You got out, you got the best out of the community. What stories stand out to you from that summer based on your ability to do that?
Well, I think the biggest story, first and foremost, Tim, is just how well connected our broadcast crew was. I mean, Joe Pratt is in Double A New Hampshire right now as the broadcast and media relations assistant with the Fisher Cats. Lily Butler is down in Chattanooga as a reporter for Channel 9, WTVC. And those two are great friends. We connected so well on the air, but even better off it. Some of my favorite stories are, just driving to different places as a group. I think another thing too is it wasn't just us three, but we created such great chemistry and relationships with everybody that was interns and everybody that was on the media side. So Liam Barrett was our broadcast director, and Liam works at Fox Sports now. And it's a really special thing to see. He actually got the Fox Sports job in the middle of that season. And and Liam, he was the visionary because he did so much from a graphic standpoint, from switching back and forth between the computer that he used as a switcher to switch different camera angles and also master the broadcast. He's just an incredibly talented person. And then we also had Abigail Lott, who she goes to Emerson, and Abigail had no experience really in terms of production. She's a journalism major at Emerson, and Abigail stepped up to the plate. She stepped in, and by the end of the season, she was directing games. So, it was everybody wore many hats, and we helped, do the game notes and media relations and, getting to create relationships with Will Thompson, who's now with Prospects Live and down here in Texas, and he's a great friend of yours, both Hofstra grads, and Chris Jones, who's at High Point, doing incredible stuff as a creative. He's going to be graduating this semester and is super talented. So, some of the favorite stories are that car ride, and then the other one as well is the host family experience, and I got to live with two incredible people in Becky and Paul Manicus. They are just the best, and got to stay with Ryan Galaney, and Ryan is now he actually drove in 6 runs yesterday for the High A Winston-Salem Dash in the Chicago White Sox organization. And I can't say enough things about Ryan Galaney and what he's meant to me the last couple of years. I mean, Ryan is just a sensational human being. We got to get dinner a couple weeks ago in Arizona, and that's the best part about the Cape Cod League is that you get to meet so many great people. It's where friends kind of become family, and some a host family becomes family, and that's a really special part of it. So some of my favorite stories include in getting to really grow close with my broadcast partners and the people on the media team and the people that I was staying with, and it's just an incredible summer.
Obviously, it helped your summer how dominant that Katua team was. One of the better regular season Kettlers teams we've seen in a truly dominant fashion. Calling that level of a team helps, but you just touched on how much of it is the family and how cool it is to see Katua guys off in the majors later. So cool for us to for me to connect with Victor Scott the other day at Fenway Park and see him starting in center for the Cardinals and stuff like that. What was your coop order? When you were hanging around before a game.
Okay, this is a good question. Great question. The coop. All right. So I did go for so I'm a gluten-free guy. So they had gluten-free bread.
Mhm.
So if I remember correctly, it was either chicken bacon ranch or I just went turkey, bacon, and barbecue. I don't know
Ooh.
if that gets scorned, if that
It's
faces
different, but I'm
backlash.
intrigued though. Like the flavor, the bacon, the barbecue flavors work though.
It was really good, and they also had dairy-free cheese. So you throw on a little vegan mozzarella, and you got yourself a pretty good sandwich.
Like that is obviously a staple and a first question of everybody from Get To It that I probably should have asked the last two guests that are on here that were also, Kettler broadcasters. That is such a big part of it.
What was
Um,
yours?
see, I'm not as watching my figure as and as healthy options as the last bunch of people that have been on the show have. I love their steak and cheese, still do. It was like they don't sell you short with the amount of steak that is stuffed inside that sandwich. And it's always been great. Um, the drink selection is always where I like had to like scratch my head when I would go there because there are so many different options. Like, all right, what do I get it? Like, what of this like 7 different lemonades can I find today? And what's going to be the option there? But no, that steak and cheese has always been life changing. And you also came in at the good time that the Coop had also taken over the snack shack too. So you get to have that at the field and not just have to run the 0.12 miles or whatever it is from the field to the front door, like years before that. It is cool. Again, Katuit is so much your baseball chapter, but I know that it started long before that, and you touched on it. Your time growing up around the Cleveland organization. Not every kid gets to do that. How cool was it? Who were some of your favorite players growing up? What made the Cleveland experience for you? Going to games at Jacobs, now Progressive, and probably the thousand other names that people probably still think it is.
You ask different people. It's the Jake. It's That place is home. I'm super grateful to be able to grow up, to grow up around the Cleveland Indians and Guardians organizations. It's something that you don't necessarily take for granted, but it's something that it just becomes a part of your summers, and you still walk around that ballpark. And I think one thing that was passed down, from my family is you treat everybody with respect, and you meet so many different people, from those that are ushers, to those that are at the concession stand, to those that are up in the press box. And I think that's where my love of broadcasting began, just from spending so much time observing in Cleveland's press box. Getting to sit, in the Cleveland radio booth, and to hear Tom Hamilton a door away, and Jim Rosenhaus and Mike Keegan and Matt Underwood and Rick Manning and now Andre Knott. I mean, getting to see these guys, throughout the summer just means so much. And Tom Hamilton especially, he just means so much to me and my family, and an incredible role model. Just somebody you look up to, and somebody who has always offered to lend a helping hand, and just be so great. He's a Hall of Fame broadcaster, but he's also a Hall of Fame person. And so I think that growing up around that was just, something that means so much. And looking back on it, it means even more, because it just helps make you you. And spending, whether it's as a fan, whether you work there, I mean, spending your summers at a ballpark is a really special thing. And so, to get to be a part of that was really cool. Both baseball is a really special thing for families. It's a family game, and we've gotten to experience that. That being said, I grew up an avid Victor Martinez fan. I know you're probably smiling because you know where you're gonna get with this, and I'm sorry for another story, but
No,
um,
you're on here to tell stories. This is a storytelling podcast. We do very little news on this show. This is about storytelling. This is why you're here.
so I appreciate that. So I was supposed to go to the then Indians game. It was a Friday night, and it was in 2009. And I forget who they were playing, but the plan was I was going to go to the game if Victor Martinez wasn't traded. And so I was at a friend's house, and it was the trade, and that was the first time that my parents explained the trade deadline to me, and how crazy it can be. So I was at a friend's house, Drew, and that day I got picked up by my mom and asked if we were going to the game. She said no. I mean, you would have thought that the world was ending. Like Victor Martinez he was and still is my hero. I remember, like, core memories, 3 years old in Winter Haven, just running around a practice field, and Victor's there. And getting to see him when he was here with the Detroit Tigers in his final year, was really cool, because he's just, I mean, he is one of the more, if not underrated, um, offensive catchers that we have seen in the last 25 years. And even when he moved over to first, especially with Detroit, he still was such a big part of those Tigers teams. So Victor Martinez is and always will be my favorite player.
Not to dig into where Victor was traded that deadline, but it's certainly one of those guys that you wish he was. For Red Sox fans growing up, you wish he was there longer. Similar like Adrian Beltre, literally the same time period. I'm going to step in because I know that you probably know this, that Cleveland doesn't get the best rap sometimes as an underrated destination. I loved the little bit of time I spent there. Came out for the Red Sox series in 2019. Saw Carlos Santana walk off the first night, and then the Red Sox went two. But Cleveland deserves a little more respect as like a summer baseball destination, because again, it helped that we came out in August, and there's so much going on, because then there's Browns training camp, and that summer was a cool one to be there for, because it's right after the Odell Beckham trade, and there's hype around the team. There's people at the airport in Cleveland talking about the Super Bowl, which I was like, all right, let's not let's not go there yet. But like that there's a level of sports fandom that I know you're as deep into as anybody, that's there. And the area around is cool. Like being able to walk a bunch of blocks down to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and be around, kind of the stadiums in Cleveland and Rocket Mortgage right over right across the street from Progressive. And I know you and I have talked about this. I'm going to ask you another food question because it was by far my favorite thing I had there in Cleveland was going to the Winking Lizard and having, their chicken parm sandwich on garlic bread. What is your order there? Because I know you and I have had deep discussions about this incredible Cleveland sports establishment.
We've had long talks about the lizard, and it's a very well-deserved thing. My order is plain and simple. They have great fries, so I'm a big fry guy. So they have unbelievable French fries. But if you're not gonna get one of their sandwiches, that chicken parm sandwich is just absolutely brilliant.
I wasn't
If you
moving for 2 hours after that, but it
Yeah,
was sensational.
and that's how you know they did their job. If you're not going to get their sandwich, you're going to get their wings. And my go-to is that they have a honey mustard based barbecue sauce called
Ooh.
Carolina Gold. It's one of their signatures, and it is delicious.
Tremendous choice. See, you have a like certain this is why you're gonna be fine in Texas. Is your barbecue like little like tweaks are intriguing. They are, but like they go well, so that's good. Um,
Thank
and we'll get to obviously now you're down in Frisco, but being able to live out this life now, you're going to your second season as a minor league broadcaster. Obviously a memorable year with Lake County and winning a title there. You find your way down to Frisco. Is this cool? How cool is this for you? And what kind of goes into your day to day and reminds you how special this is to be doing what you get to do and put on a headset for, professional baseball, affiliated baseball too.
It's something that you don't take for granted, and it's something that means just so much. There's so much that goes into a day, being in minor league baseball as a broadcaster and you're helping handle media relations and there's so many parts that are moving and you're running around and you might not even get to the booth until maybe about 45 minutes to an hour before the game, and that's a slow day. So, when that headset comes on, it's like all time stops. The only thing that really matters are the stories around the ballpark, in the ballpark, around the league and the teams, and what's between the baselines. It's, it's incredible. It's surreal to get to do this. The roles that happen throughout the day. So, I get there and the biggest thing is as the broadcast media relations assistant is putting together all the broadcast materials and the media relations materials and you know, facilitating that to the press box and to the coaches and for both the Rough Riders and the visiting staffs, and then starting to get the broadcast ready too. So contributing graphics and trying to if there's a press release that needs written, then we'll do that as well. And so, there've been a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that, we have to get press releases out for. So we've done that. And you're also balancing that with prep and prepping for the broadcast and prepping for your games. So, a lot goes into everybody preps their own different way. But Zach Bigley, my boss, he's been just such a huge resource and a huge influence just on the way he carries himself and the way, he puts so much attention to detail and little details in to what he does. And that's part of the reason that makes him great. And so getting to observe that, especially these last 3 days and even the last week with all the media day festivities and all that great stuff, like getting to see how he approaches it and operates it has been a major thing because the littler the details are and the more there are, the more effective you can be and get out of this role.
It's so cool again, and there's that, especially now, it's kind of fun to get to talk to you about it because there's that opening day feel and baseball's back, and especially when it's staggered, right? It's the major league start, then AAA starts, and then you're waiting for the rest of the minor leagues to get going. Then by that weekend, it finally gets here. Now you feel like you're in a roll, but did you feel that extra anticipation watching, a Cleveland game first, and then AAA, and now getting ready for you guys?
Yeah, you watch those first games of the year, and you watch that Thursday game too, before the season started. And that was just another thing that helped jolt that feeling in you that, oh my gosh, it's finally here. And then yeah, the AAA season started, and following what, the Columbus Clippers did, trying to see what some of the former Lake County captains did from last year and how great they've been in Columbus and in Akron, and getting to follow the Round Rock Express because that's a part of the Rangers organization, and it's a nonstop continuum to try and learn more about them. So, the more you follow them, the more it's like, oh my gosh, it's actually a week. And then once Thursday hit, I think everything set in, and Friday and Saturday there was just so much going on, and um, you know, it's hard to take it in and enjoy the moment. But like after that pregame show was finished, I think on Friday, just taking in a little bit of the festivities, it was just something that builds perspective that, hey, we get to do this. This is pretty awesome. And then by the time Sunday came around, I think Sunday was really where, things came all together. It was a fantastic game. It was 2-0 shutout by the Rough Riders. And Trey Shupak, who's a right-hander, made his 115th career minor league start, and he was absolutely dominant. Pitched 5 shutout innings. He just allowed 2 hits. That was it. Just 2 base runners. So, getting to do a game like that, and then Sebastian Walcott, the top Rangers prospect, driving in a run with a 2-out RBI single in the seventh. That was one of those games that helps build momentum, not just for the team, but for the broadcast and the broadcasters and producers as well. So this is a special weekend.
We got a couple of quick hitting baseball ones before we get you out of here, but the last thing that we touched on at the beginning, I have to know, and obviously we talked about it off air that it's multiple of our our baseball colleagues heading their way down to Texas for the first time. What is exciting to you about this cultural shift of being a Northeast kid your entire life? I guess we'll call Ohio the Northeast, to now being in Texas where everything's just a little different. And what excites you about being around Frisco? Are there stops you're excited to see? What is going to be the Texan culture for Tyler Danburg?
Ooh, well, I'm not going to be wearing a cowboy hat. I prefer to my boots, but I'm going to try and embrace as much out of this as I can. The one thing what I'm really excited about is, the history and everything that's around, and also too the sports that are in the Dallas area, the Metroplex. They call it Texas or Sports City USA. So there's a lot around here that I'm really excited about. The one spot that I'm looking forward to hit is in Fort Worth, about an hour away, the Stockyards. It's an historic late 19th century district where there's a lot to do. I love that stuff, love the Old West, and can't wait to get out there.
All right, let's get some quick baseball stuff before we get you out of here. Favorite baseball movie?
Favorite baseball movie, Little Big League or Major League, one of the two.
Good. I like the choices. I've been getting so much Little Big League clips on TikTok lately too, or so many clips. Like a fantastic one, and it's the first. I know we have a future guest in Javik Blake, who that's going to be his favorite. But I'm happy that got a mention early.
It's the best sports movie montage,
Oh
in
yeah,
my opinion. Run Around Sue.
yeah, totally agree. We got the Rose Bowl travel story, which was fantastic, and I can't wait for that to be on social. Favorite baseball travel story, whether it's the Cape or I don't know if you guys traveled for Ohio State baseball. Obviously you'll get to a point in the minors where I'm sure that'll be on the table at some point in your career. But if there is one, a favorite baseball travel story.
Ooh, favorite baseball travel story. I got to travel a little bit with Lake County last year. We went to one game on the road, and that was the playoffs in Dayton, where I met my partner, Logan Petoskey, my guy. Met him as him and the team came in from East Lake, Ohio. I was coming in from Columbus. I'd say best baseball travel story was in the Cape Cod League, and I, one of my what I this was fun. It doesn't involve the travel per se, but it was after Katu had actually lost in the Cape Cod League semis, and they had just lost in heartbreaking fashion, but it was an absolutely incredible season, and it was just a fantastic game too. and it was probably about 5 or 6 of us, and we just drove back and just reflected on the season. It was like the first time you can really look back and reflect on things. And I think we actually just we stopped at a I think we stopped at a McDonald's, and everybody was just starving. Nobody had eaten in like 7 hours because the game was so long. It went to extras. And I remember we stopped. Oh, the dogs. We stopped, I think, at a McDonald's, and we had lawn chairs in Joe's truck, and we just hung out there for a little bit. It just everybody got something to eat, and on our way back from Bourne, Mass, we stopped in a McDonald's parking lot and just hung out and talked about the year. And I thought that was a fun one. I'd say any car ride, especially somewhere about an hour away, like Chatham or even Harwich, about 45 minutes from Katuitt. Those were really fun too.
Pre-game music when it comes to either prepping or what you want to hear for BP. Like what's on your playlist for that?
That's a great question. I am strictly anywhere from the 50s to 80s is my wheelhouse. I think it kind of depends on the day, but um, anywhere from my favorite band of all time is Chicago. So you got to have a little bit of
Very
Chicago in there.
nice choice.
Thanks.
My parents
Thanks.
would be thrilled.
Shout out the Crowleys. Shout
Oh
shout out
God.
Mr. and Mrs. Um, yeah, Chicago, Bruce Springsteen, Fleetwood Mac. I'd say those are if you said to start one, bench one, cut one, I'm going for the door. I'm not even answering that one. So those are my three that I usually go with.
Your dream broadcast partner.
Dream broadcast partner. If you know what, let's the late great Bob Uecker, may he rest in peace. He would be just a dream. Also, John Miller. How would you not want to spend 9 innings up in a chilly late April San Francisco booth?
Yeah, it was. I was at Fenway, just kind of taking it as a fan last night for Sunday Night Baseball, and that's where the instant nostalgia comes in. Is the John Miller, Joe Morgan era of Sunday Night Baseball, and how much we want that back, and what an incredible duo that was. Last one I have, I'm sure it'll be something around Cleveland. Maybe it won't be. Do you have a Major League Baseball hot take for the season? You've had about a week to see some stuff too, so you have a little bit of a leg up than some of the guests we've had on so far.
Well, this probably is not a hot take anymore, but I've been saying since early February that Christian Campbell's going to win Rookie of the Year in the American League. I've been saying that been singing his praises um, since the start of the year, start of spring. But I'd say, ooh, hot take. I think it's a great question. This is a really good question.
You set your
I
case with the Campbell thing. I mean, that's the statement in itself, but it is the right one because I'm going to join you there.
I appreciate that, Tim. You know what? We're gonna let the AL Central bias kick in a little bit. I don't think an AL Central team wins 90 games or at least 93 games. But I think one of them makes a deep playoff run because that's what Cleveland does. They find a way. Bias aside, they have some of the most wins since 2015 in Major League Baseball. That's just what they do. And Steven Voter's an incredible manager and does a great job. And the Tigers, we know what they can do when they get hot. And the Royals really have the power to do that. The question is, will they? So I don't know it because it's kind of a three dog race every year, and then you got the Twins because that's just what they do. So I think maybe there's one team that doesn't necessarily win 90 games, but I think if they get hot, they can get hot and make a playoff run.
That is the specific nature of a hot take that we've been looking for. That is what we absolutely love to hear. My friend, it has been so great having you on. Appreciate you taking so much of the time on the off day, as you get ready for another busy week in the minors. But can't wait, as everyone should be, to listen to your broadcast with the Frisco RoughRiders this season. And I don't. We've talked about this before. I don't think there's a better growing star in the game of broadcasting than the guy I'm talking to right now. And it's another great year that Frisco fans are now, the lucky ones to get to tune into throughout the course of the season.
Oh, Tim, thank you so much for having me on. It's been fun to follow you, and I just can't wait to see what you keep on doing. So it's just a pleasure taking time out to talk with you always.
And a big thanks to Tyler Danburg for stopping by this episode of Connect the Game. Great conversation with the rising star in the broadcast industry. Make sure you're around the baseball community to remember that name in just a few years. Want to end the show today. We talked about it on episode 2, and there's developments to talk about in episode 3. Last week, I gave a rather in-depth discussion of the struggles of Rafael Devers and why he was really just one swing away from starting to turn it around. Similar to the way that David Ortiz was in those struggles that he had early in the season in 2009 and 2010. Well, it did take one swing, and Devers has been absolutely on fire since then. His RBI double in the middle game of the 3-game set in Baltimore against the Orioles really started to turn that around for him. And since then, the series finale against Baltimore has a hit. Opening day, the home opener at Fenway Park, 2 hits against the Orioles. Another hit, it's a home run, his first of the season in the first half of the doubleheader on Sunday. And then, like we talked about during the takeaways, Sunday Night Baseball, he absolutely went off. 4 for 4 scores, 4 of the 18 runs the Red Sox had, drove in 3 more, pair of doubles. Just looked like the guy that we know can do damage at Fenway Park and all around the league. The swing looks better. He's not getting beat. He's driving the ball, that one of the doubles, again, driving into left center, hitting one off the monster. This is the Rafael Devers that I think everyone knew was just waiting to get some reps in, get some more at-bats. Again, didn't want to make that excuse, and the Red Sox certainly didn't either. Alex Cora has really been adamant again about going against that narrative of, oh, well, it's not enough spring training at-bats. Well, look at the hottest hitter in baseball in Wilyer Abreu, who still cannot be contained. Has the walk-off hit off the monster in game 1 of the doubleheader, keeps it rolling, and then has that incredible throw, for the runner going first or third, and a great look by Alex Bregman. Just subtly drops the tag down, didn't give any sort of semblance that the ball was coming in. An incredible throw from Abreu. He is doing absolutely everything right now. But again, back to Devers. Wilyer Abreu is the whole reason why that excuse of, well, I brought it up, and it's certainly still valid. This is a guy that still needed at-bats, didn't have that many in spring training. Now that Rafael Devers is in the rhythm of a season, he's got a 5-game hitting streak at the time of this recording to back that up, and he looks like the hitter that can drive this offense and make everyone around him better. There's no better way to look at that than the culmination that was Sunday Night Baseball and 18 runs for the Boston Red Sox. That'll do it for episode 3 of the Connect the Game podcast. Probably have a little more basketball talk next week as we wrap up the Final Fours and continue on with the Major League Baseball season. And we're still only a few weeks away from the NFL draft. Plenty to talk about in April, and this is the place to keep coming back to, hear from some great guests, and let's talk about what's trending as we continue an incredible month in the world of sports. Episode 4 is back next week. For now, for our guest Tyler Danburg, I'm Tim Crowley saying so long. This has been episode 3 of the Connect the Game podcast.